What's the single characteristic that stands out when I think of Geno Auriemma? Tough love. You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, here's a quick update. October has been an amazing month for us. Thanks for all of your support, everyone that's listening. The community is growing incredibly fast. We're thrilled to give back by donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games, both on the football side, basketball, men's and women's, and likely baseball games in the future. We also make a monthly donation to Bleeding Blue for Good and hope you'll consider supporting them as well. If you're enjoying the show, especially my everydayers, please take a moment to subscribe and follow wherever you listen. So if you're an everydayer on YouTube and you have not followed me yet on Apple or Spotify, please do so. Sometimes you miss something, you miss a YouTube notification, you get the backup with the audio version if, let's say, you're on the run. But thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day, no matter where you're listening. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, so what did I mean by that when I said that the characteristic that stands out with Geno Auriemma is tough love? Going to a game, being there live, probably the first time I've seen a live women's basketball game since I was a kid, just based off of where I've lived, the inability to maybe get tickets at times. I remember going to Gamble Pavilion during the Jen Rosati years, Rebecca Lobo, and when you're there, you're a kid, you're paying attention to the basketball, you're having fun with your friends. But as an adult in covering the sport and really kind of looking at things from a different lens, I looked at the way Geno reacts to different players. And one of them, mostly all of them, he gives some form of tough love. And so in the process, you may look at that, and some may look at that from whether you're watching Geno or whether you're watching past coaches like Jim Calhoun or our current men's coach in Dan Hurley as, overly critical or, perfectionist, if you will. But that's why they're as good as they are. And they've been able to build these organizations that have been so dynamic. And so in UConn's 59-58 win over North Carolina, I think it gave us a glimpse of what the team's talent, and it also highlighted some issues that they could face down the road. And there's two kind of storylines I feel like that came out of that game, outside of the obvious. Geno tying the record, Paige being amazing. Those are kind of baseline things. So whenever someone says, how could you talk about this and not talk about Paige? Or how could you talk about this and not talk about such and such player? Because I want to look at things a little differently. And for me, the growing chemistry between Ice Brady and Sarah Strong as front court mates is one of the things that caught my eye. And it's easy to get caught up in stats, but watching these two young front court players feed off each other on the court is an absolute joy. They have a kind of a nonverbal communication that they use. They combine for 23 points and 22 rebounds, 8 assists. So you can get buried in those stats because they were battling physical Tar Heels front court with Gokden and Toomey, both very tall, both very athletic. The connection between them seems really interesting from like that foundational piece that this UConn team is building in terms of, I think most people thought Jana El Alfy would be kind of head and shoulders above everybody. But it turns out that this budding chemistry between Sarah and Ice has really been kind of permeating for the last few games. And I've noticed it quite frequently with the high-low that they've been able to do. And now that they're getting against, tougher competition down the stretch, I think Sarah's ability to step out and consistently make threes is going to make this an even bigger opportunity because the spacing will be better. So it's a necessity for this team as time goes on to potentially, hit these open shots. We talked about it in the show yesterday where attacking that zone that North Carolina ran, that Courtney Banghart put in there, they didn't do that great of a job. They waited sometimes too long. Sometimes they tried to make the extra pass. versus kind of just, hey, you get the opening in the zone, shoot. Let's not get too greedy. I love an unselfish team, but sometimes unselfishness leads to paralysis by analysis. And I think Geno would rather have some more assertiveness when it comes to kind of breaking down a zone that way. When they did it well, there was one in particular play where they kind of had Sarah cut to the middle. She kicked it back out to Paige, and Paige rifled it over to Ashlyn in the corner for a wide open three. Bang. It was great. They tried that multiple times. Caitlin Chen, Morgan Shelley shot some threes. So they just didn't make shots. That's the bottom line. But Geno's tough love doesn't just go to anybody. I feel like Jana El Alfy he's tough on her. I think some of the chemistry between Ice and Sarah is flourishing. I think Jana is a different story. Watching from the sidelines, you can see how hard Geno is pushing her. And at times during the Carolina game, his frustration with her with mistakes was kind of palpable. I was literally sitting behind the UConn basket, so the bench was to my left. And, Geno's lack of patience signals one thing to me, that he knows that she's capable of more. We've seen this from Geno before. He's notoriously demanding of players, especially in the front court, because he knows how key it is in the game to have that dominant inside presence. And he knows that she can handle it and grow from it. It's a baptism by fire. But it's also a learning curve that eventually is going to pay some dividends. For now, it's clear that she has work to do. And, earning Geno's trust, you can see Jana, he just has those, it's like that for her. It's like that. I noticed that for, I think he does it to Sarah a little bit too, because she's such a shy kid, to kind of shock her a little bip into understanding what he means. But I think as time goes on, these pressure situations are going to, only going to get better as Jana gets more minutes. And then, I think part of me wants to talk about Paige is just, we talked about it on yesterday's show. She transcends the sport, 29 points, performance, but it's really not about the points. The question I asked her about, what does it feel like to essentially have your opponents say it's a pleasure to play against you? That's wild to me. I don't think everyone feels that way, but I think teams that feel like they can't beat you feel that way. But I think, South Carolina, I think USC and the folks that we're going to talk about later in the program know that even though Paige is a good person and that she's great for women's basketball, they want to take her down. So it's great to see these young players, taking control of their own destiny. Bueckers has great leadership. Geno knows she's the key to navigating these early season growing pains, because it's like having another coach out there. I know it's so cliche to talk about that, but when you have that kind of best player out there, I'll give you something super, it's correlative, but it's not even the right context. But I want to share it because it's my show, and it's a story about me coaching. The only time I coached both men's and women's basketball, I was coaching a youth league down here in North Carolina, and I coached 6th to 8th grade boys and girls. And it was just a volunteer gig. And for whatever reason, a lot of these teams get formed, but there's kind of like this lottery, and I got the best player in the league. And she was so much more physically gifted than everybody else that it was almost hard to coach anything, because it was like, you just give it to her and you kind of let everybody get out of the way. And it was not that competitive of a league. So I didn't want to make it like that, but she was great. She, she tried to help with other players and pass. I think I found out later that she'd end up playing some college ball. I think she was a low-level Division I. But like I said, she was just a physically gifted kid. And so as a coach, if you're watching that, you got to understand that even though when you're at that level or at the highest levels, it's great to have someone out there that can kind of enforce what you're trying to do. Simple stuff, right? Listen, when we return, we're going to look ahead to history in stores, all that is being built up. And then we're going to talk about recruiting news with Agot Makeer. She kind of narrowed her list down. We are still in the making. And is South Carolina going to go down? We don't know. Come back after this. What's up, Husky fans? Listen up. Have you downloaded the Roy app yet? If not, you're missing out on a chance to be a part of something game-changing in the world of NIL. Roy allows you, the fans, to decide which players get the NIL money. And the best part, if that player transfers, you get your money back. It's a win-win for keeping our team intact and helping shape the future of college sports. Remember the incredible moment this past game when Joe Fayano stepped up and delivered a win for the Huskies? Well, it was his pinpoint passing or game-changing decision-making. He's been an absolute force. That's why Joe Fayano is our Roy Player of the Week. We're spotlighting his stand-up performance against UAB, throwing some money into his account on Roy to show our appreciation. You can join us, download the Roy app to head over to joinroy.com today to make a contribution to Joe or any other of your favorite players. It doesn't take much, 10, 20 bucks, but it all adds up, and it ensures that these athletes will stay with us. Plus, it's good for the game long-term. Don't forget to use the promo code Locked On when you sign on. Every athlete from every team is there. Roy, support the players, change the game. What's up, UConn fans? You know there's nothing like being in the arena for the big game. The energy, the crowd, the unforgettable moments. And with the Game Time app, getting there has never been easier. Game Time's new Game Time picks, features, and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you don't waste time scrolling. You get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy. No surprises. And plus, you get the all-in pricing that you want. No hidden fees. Right now, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's Locked On College for $20 off. What time is it, guys? It's game time. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. Looking ahead quickly at history, it's going to happen Wednesday night in stores. Win number 1,217 for Geno Auriemma. Home game against poor Fairleigh Dickinson, FDU, who once beat Purdue as a 16 seed in the men's game, but that's for another day. And he will become the all-time winningest coach in college basketball history. The energy in Gamble will be electric. And now I know this. I've heard rumors that they are literally going to have goats in the arena to bring out to him, to show their appreciation for what he's done as the greatest of all time. He's going to have dignitaries of the likes of UConn legends such as Diana Taurasi. These are confirmed people. Sue Bird, Brianna Stewart, Maya Moore, Nikisha Sales expected to be in attendance. 19 All-Americans. I think 19 championships and 21 All-Americans. Something in that. I probably mixed that up. But it's going to be an incredible tribute to the legacy he's built at UConn, as well as his partner, CD, Chris Daly. And there's really not much else to say. I did a whole show on it. I just wanted to keep you guys abreast to some of the stuff that we got going on. The GOATs, the amazing players. I'm sure there's going to be interviews. People probably pop on the radio, feed with Bob Joyce. Check that out. But let's also look at what they're still continuing to do behind the scenes. They officially signed Kellis Fisher, Blanca Quinones, and Gandhi Malu-Mamel to their offer sheets. And I've called them offer sheets like they're baseball players, but to their signed letters of intent. So that's official. Then we have recruiting news that Agot Makeer, the number 4 prospect in the class of 2025, will not sign in the early signing period. She's planning to commit in the next month or so. Sources confirmed at 24/7 Sports. The finalists remain UConn, Duke, Kentucky, South Carolina, UNC, and Michigan State. So she's cut her list from 12 to 6. She's a difference maker. If we were to get her, then we would have the equivalent of a monster class that is going to legitimately carry this program to the next generation. If you don't get Agot Makeer, it's very possible that they still have a championship contending class with Sarah Strong, with Blanca Quinones, with Gandhi, with Kellis Fisher. And then you have another year of Ali Zabal and Morgan Shelley. So, and you still have Ashland, you still have Jana El Alfy. So that's the thing that I want to really kind of impress upon you guys, that if we don't get her, it's not going to be the end of all time. It's just going to be we're going to have to, it's not going to be that dominant as it used to be. And I thought a great thing that I heard in the press conference from, I keep calling her, it's her name, but Courtney Banghart, that, I'm singing her praises because she's brilliant. She legitimately said the testament to Geno is over the last 6, 7, 8 years, it's not a 2-horse race anymore. It's not just them in Tennessee. It's not just Notre Dame. It's not just multiple 10, 15, 20 schools can legitimately win a national championship now. So that is what is the realistic aspect of women's basketball these days, that there's so much more competition for these big time recruits. And yes, is UConn's brand as good as, if not better than, any of those 5 other teams? Absolutely. Just from a legacy standpoint, but you still have to compete now. And I think that's a testament to him, and that he's really kind of still in the fight. But let's talk about around women's college basketball. There's some interesting matchups coming up down the pike, I think, in the next 2 weeks or so. You got one matchup with Notre Dame and USC this Saturday. Promises to be one of the best games of the season. These two programs are loaded with talent and ready to prove they belong in the championship conversation. Notre Dame boasts a superstar that we're going to have to face very soon in Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles. Hidalgo has been nothing short of electric. She's averaging 25 points a game and 5.3 steals, while Miles has returned from injury in dominant fashion, averaging 18.3 points, 7.3 rebounds, or 7.3 assists. And in the depth of Sonia Citron and Latu King and Kate Koval, Notre Dame has a roster that's both balanced and dynamic. It's going to be fantastic to watch. So yeah, I mean, this game is loaded with players. USC counters with obviously Juju Watkins, Kiki Riffin. Watkins is filling up the stat sheet with 21.5 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 5 assists per game, while the Riffin has been steady scoring force inside. Their ability to complement each other will be key against Notre Dame's deep lineup. So with both of these teams coming off a week of rest, expect a high-energy, closely contested game. This isn't just a game. It's another one of those statement opportunities of perception to see where they stand, especially on the Notre Dame side, because I think most people think that USC is essentially the next hot team with Juju, and I think Hannah Hidalgo and Notre Dame are going to have something to say about that. So look for those. And when we return, let's talk about the Big Bad Wolf. Let's talk about South Carolina. They play a UCLA team that has quite a bit of talent. And could they be on kind of upset watch? Would their streak be coming to an end? We'll talk about that after the break. I love a great deal as much as the next person, but I'm not about to wrestle an alligator or camp out in line overnight just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no nonsense. That's why when Mint Mobile said I could get wireless for just $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I had to check it out. Turns out it really is that easy. The hardest part, waiting on hold to break up with my old provider. Switching to Mint Mobile was smooth, an easy-to-use website, a quick purchase, and an activation in minutes. Right now, all 3-month plans include the unlimited plan are just $15 a month. You'll get high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and it all runs on the nation's largest 5G network. Plus, you can bring your own phone. Keep your number in all of your contacts. To get started, you'll go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege for premium wireless at just $15 a month. Cut your wireless bill today at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Disclaimer, $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on the first 3-month plan only. Speeds lower above 40 gigabytes on an unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions may apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, guys, welcome back to Locked On UConn. We've talked a little bit about Geno's about to break the record, who's going to be in the building, the tough love he's given to Jana El Alfy, and how that is going to shape her season, but also the incredible chemistry that we're seeing, not only from, we talked to Emily Adams about this, about Sarah Strong and Caitlin Chen, but with Sarah Strong and Ice Brady. Loving to see that kind of nonverbal communication where they kind of know exactly where they're going to be, play the high-low game. Ice is being able to make some threes, kind of helps, I think, both those sides, and really kind of love that. We talked about Agot Makeer. She's narrowed her list to 6. UConn is still in the mix. Talked a little bit about the matchup between Notre Dame versus USC. teams that we'll see later this year. Also, now we bring up South Carolina, the Big Bad Wolf. They play in a Sunday matchup between with UCLA, and it offers another marquee clash. And South Carolina enters the game with a 42-game win streak, tied for the 7th longest in Division I history. But UCLA, led by Lauren Betts, presents one of the toughest tests the Gamecocks have faced during the streak. Betts has been dominant, averaging 21.5 points and 11.5 rebounds per game. Even with key players like Kiki Rice easing back from injury, UCLA's depth and size make them a formidable opponent. South Carolina, meanwhile, will rely on its depth and defensive prowess to maintain the streak. This game isn't just about records. It's about seeing how South Carolina handles a true road test, but also against a top 5 team who is going to be bigger than them from a front court perspective. That hasn't happened in a while for South Carolina. And I mean bigger in terms of the positional size. And also, UCLA has a chance to, being a new member of the Big Ten, to prove they belong in the national championship conversation. I think the interesting part for me is going to be how South Carolina adjusts to not having the bigs that they've had in the past that they just dump the ball down low, and or if they miss, they have a really crappy shooting night that they get a ton of offensive rebounds. They still have athletes to go get it. They still can do that. But mainly this team has really lived off of the ability to get easy buckets. And we'll see if that happens from now on. But let's talk about the end of this show right now. I think UConn showed a little bit. I think that game against North Carolina, as many people have said some negative stuff in YouTube comments, which are brutal at times, I think people aren't looking at it from the proper perspective. That game in itself proved that UConn has a lot of work to do, but it's better it happens now. You don't want this team to be so good this early that if there's too many good teams left, they're going to have to play. Even losing a couple games is not going to hurt this team's morale, because you learn from adversity. You learn from understanding that you have weaknesses, that you're not perfect, and that's okay. Like, the chemistry is there. They're going to learn to navigate the adversity. Geno is kind of created a standard that they're trying to reach and follow Paige's lead. Anytime you have Paige Bueckers, you're obviously going to have a chance. I really think I'm doubling down again that just because they're struggling early against better opponents does not mean that they are not championship quality. It means that the game of women's basketball has expanded where they are not going to beat everybody by 40 points anymore. It's just not going to happen. Okay? So marquee games like Notre Dame and USC, South Carolina versus UCLA are on the horizon. UConn plays some tough competition pretty soon as well. Let's take a quick look at that. We pull up UConn women basketball schedule. They are going to play after they beat up FDU. Poor FDU. They will see Oregon State come to town of no conference whatsoever. Then they'll have one more kind of rough bye game against Holy Cross, where they'll win that game by about 40 or 50. And then this is when the fun starts. They have a mixture of Big East play with incredible non-conference play, right? There's a stretch from December 7th to December 7th to December 21st. So a 3-week stretch where they play 25th ranked Louisville, 6th ranked Notre Dame on the road, 8th ranked Iowa State at home, 3rd ranked USC at home. Doesn't get much better than that, guys. They're gonna be tested. So if you're worried about stuff, women's college basketball is where it's at right now. It's exciting. This talent is incredible. The storylines that are elevating the sport every day. It's a lot of fun to cover. So that's today's episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected, make sure that toughness meter is always rising. And remember, it's not just about getting it done. It's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. That's our goal every day here. And it's been a goal for Geno Auriemma and his staff and Chris Daly for 40 years. So thank you for all that you guys do. When you listen to this tomorrow morning, we're in the middle of a day. We're a day away from Geno Auriemma being the greatest coach of all time officially with the wins record. I think he's already there, but you get what I'm saying. As always, go Huskies.